Hey everyone, it's Rebecca Ruth, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today's guest is Dr. Angel. Hi, Dr. Angel, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. I like to jump right in. So go ahead and tell us where you are and what you do in the industry.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. I'm Angel. I'm from Canada. Currently, I am located in Toronto, Ontario, and in the industry, I am a pageant queen, but also a pageant coach. And I find that pageantry is so fulfilling because it enables and develops well-rounded women.
Definitely on mute. Very awesome. How did this journey into pageantry begin for you?
Yeah, for me, it began 20 years ago as a teen, and it initially just started as something that every single girl dreams of, kind of being a princess, right? And if you think about pageants, it's very much related to that. But it wasn't until I became an adult that I recognized that there's so much more to pageantry than, the glitz and glams of a crown and a sash. It's really about what you can do for others, but it's also about how pageantry can allow you to truly get to know yourself. And it allows you to do so much self-reflection that I find is invaluable in so many areas of your life, whether it's interpersonal relationships, professional relationships, but even, your own personal relationships too with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think I asked, what is your title?
Yeah, so my title is Dr. World 2021, and this pageant system is dedicated to education and mentorship. As you could already probably assume, to be able to compete in this pageant system, it's for accredited doctorates, but this is doctors of any kind. So you could have your doctor in medicine, your doctor in pharmacy, your doctors in education, your Juris Doctor, your PhD. So a wide range of doctorates can compete, and it's special because it allows women to showcase their career, their education, in addition to traditional aspects of pageantry.
Yeah, so I really love that first. So wait, I want to go back for a minute. So it's doctors of medicine and things like that, but also PhD.
Yeah. So I'm actually a doctor of
Okay.
pharmacy. So, and then even Juris Doctors as well. So there's doctors in all sorts of fields. And I think that's something that maybe the public in general might not necessarily know, that there's so many different levels of education in many, many, many different faculties and specialty areas.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. I love, I have gotten to know Dr. Michelle Lynham. And so she's just really cool in general.
Like, yeah, she really is.
Yeah, she's cool in general, but it was really cool when she was crowned Dr.
USA.
Which one is it? Dr. USA?
Dr. USA.
Okay, she was crowned Dr. USA. Because I think that a lot of times with pageants, that I'm guilty of this myself, is that, this is going to sound mean, but honestly, like before I became more educated on and started meeting a lot more people involved in the pageant world, one thing about first of all, in general, is that these pageant queens, pageant women who do it are professionals, are business owners, are, moms, they're just like anybody else, really. So it's not like this is just something you do because you can't find something else to do, kind of thing. But then also the doctor, when I met Michelle and got to know her, I'm like, so this is really cool. And one of her hashtags is always beauty and brains, which I think is really cool, because I'm like, for that little girl, well, she has girls. So for her girls, for that little girl who's watching her, for example, watching you, it's like, hey, I can be the doctor, the lawyer, the professional, the businesswoman, and still be, in the pageant world and still be taken seriously in both of those worlds. So I really like the message that sends out to people. So I just want to say that and put myself out there. That like I'm pretty transparent about the fact that I had that attitude before getting to know the pageant world. before I got to know all of you all. I did. So I'm pretty transparent about that, but I do not feel that way anymore. But so tell me a little bit about what it looks like to be Dr. World, correct?
Yeah, so for me, it was probably a unique experience. It was the inaugural year of the pageant. So the first year this pageant ever took place. And it did unfortunately take place in a pandemic. So I had to compete virtually. But what that also meant for me was my reign was mostly done during lockdown, when Canada was locked down. As we know that there were quite a bit of strict rules. So I was very limited to virtual interviews, virtual pageant judging, virtual events, but I made the most of the tools and the resources that I had virtually. I mean, if I could redo it over, I would have loved to have had my reign outside of a pandemic, but there's some things that you don't control, and so really all we could focus on is what we do control. And here I am meeting with you today, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I don't understand it to your level, but I understand it, originally Worthy is a meetup. So we were supposed to meet up.
Yeah.
And of course, with the pandemic, yeah, like we shifted and everything became virtual. So I definitely understand the shift. So has it been different? I mean, at work, as a doctor, do people treat you differently? Like, is it any different for you now?
Like in terms of my education, or
No, I mean like more like colleagues and things like that. Like, are they able to separate like the doctor from, the beauty queen, the pageant queen? Are they?
I see. That's so funny. Yeah, it's funny that you asked me that. I mean, when I'm at work, I'm focusing on, what I got to do at work. And so when I'm in pageants, I focus on what I'm doing in pageants. So it's funny because the two worlds haven't quite actually collided. I think there was the one time a few years ago, I started a new job, and I think our executive admin was trying to find a photo of me for the newsletter to let everybody know that we hired a new senior director. And it was when she Googled me that she found out the first time that I did pageants, and she was just came to my office. She's like, "You've been keeping a secret from us." And it's not something that I normally talk about. And it's funny that you do mention, even the stereotypes and the assumptions that you had initially. And so it's very unfortunate. But for a professional woman, there's times where I don't know how everybody is going to perceive my pageant career, right? I know how I perceive it. I know how people that know me perceive it, but in a professional situation, sometimes that's not often something you do put on your resume, because there are still those preconceived notions and judgments and stereotypes about pageants. Although we know that pageants have come such a long way, it's unfortunate that is kind of how it is. But I think the two worlds have definitely been separated for me. However, wherever somebody does, find out and they ask me about it, I do my best to represent exactly what it is, right? It's about being well-rounded. It's so much more than being beautiful on a stage. And yeah, and so it's just, when you have the opportunities to break those stereotypes, but at the same time, um, I feel that I know why I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for my causes, but also for myself as well, right? So it's less about that external gain, but it's more about, your own personal desires and initiatives.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great that you point that out, because yeah, I mean, case in point, myself, but I do understand that, because even on the, fashion side of things, I've talked to people who, still have like a job, like a 9-to-5 job, but then they're a model on the side, or they're a designer on the side, or something like that. And for many different reasons, one of them being that a lot of employers are so afraid that if you have a side thing, that you're not going to give the focus to the job. So I think in general, some people are afraid to even say anything. But two, yeah, like anytime you mention, oh, like that you're in fashion, it's just kind of like, oh, kind of like, oh, well, that's not a real thing to be in fashion. So it's like, I think a lot of people feel like until you're like at the level of, I don't know, Versace or something like that, or Zarina Akers, like those big names that we know, people are kind of like, oh yeah, that little fashion thing that you do, and don't really, I think just don't really respect it, to be honest. They just don't really respect it. But I also think it's because people just don't really understand it, you know? I
And that's
like, again, I say case in point, me, like people don't understand what really, what is really going on and what it really represents. So I think, you know, Layla Rose, right?
yeah, I know her. I haven't personally met her yet though, but I do. Yes, I am aware of her.
Yeah, so we had a pretty long talk about this, but you know, just kind of helping, not educate, I think sometimes that word comes out wrong, but just kind of, you know, maybe trying to find a way to just get more respect for both. I think it's all one industry, honestly, in a way, but you know, different aspects of the industry. And also even the I think it's more fashion people to pageant people than it is pageant people to fashion people, who have the kind of, you guys aren't doing what we're doing. I
Yeah.
think that cattiness comes more from the fashion to the pageant people, because pageantry and pageant people, from my experience, you guys need to a little bit more, a lot more inclusive, for sure. A lot more, I think, supportive. And I mean, of course, there is the competition. It is the competition, but I feel like there's a lot more kind of coming together. Am I feeling that right?
You know, to be honest with you, I think you could say either or side for any industry, right? Like, I think whether it's fashion, pageantry, healthcare, there's always going to be a group of people who are going to be inclusive, accepting, supportive. And then you might have some that aren't so much, but I don't think it's exclusive to a certain field. I think that every field has a mix of both. And it's just being able to find your niche and decide, you know, what circles in whatever field it is that you want to surround yourself with.
That makes sense. Yeah, that completely makes sense too. And then just, excuse me, finding the right people
Absolutely.
within whatever industry that is also to go along with it. So what is there okay, I'm not well versed in the pageant world yet, but is there like a next level competition that you do? I guess not, because you're Dr. World.
Yeah, so I had the overall title, so I don't get to come back. But for example, Michelle will be able to come back and she'll be competing for Dr. World. For me, yeah, I think that after in September, I will be likely moving on to my next adventure.
And do we know what that adventure is yet?
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet. Okay.
Still deciding, and even if I did know, it's a secret.
I understand that. So when does your reign end?
It actually ends, I believe, on September 18th.
On September 18th. Okay. And so is that going to be virtual?
Yeah, I think this year they decided to continue to do the pageant virtually. I think that they weren't sure what was going on with the pandemic as well, but it's going to be a virtual event this year as well.
Got it. And where is it normally, or where would it be if it
So
was?
the director, which you probably already know, Diana, she's based out of Kentucky.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I know this pandemic, like I had a long, I saw Dr. Michelle. I don't know why I call everyone by their first names. Like you want to know what it is? My son's pediatrician, she goes by first name. So she says doctor, she doesn't use her last name. So now it's like an automatic thing. I just use people's first names. But Dr. Lynham, when I last saw her, we had a long conversation. You know, she's pretty pretty openly, you know, like talks pretty openly about the pandemic and all, you know, everything that goes into that. And I know everybody has different opinions and things like that. But I think it's tough, you know, it's tough. And she has like daughters, her daughters model and stuff like that. And from what I understand, they haven't been able to do much modeling in this last year or so because of it. So I guess, how did you get through the pandemic? I know you were in BC with family and stuff, but just kind of day to day, what did it look? Well, you weren't quarantined and stuff, were you? Because you're a doctor.
So actually, I'm in a leadership role. So I actually don't work in a traditional pharmacy. I actually work from home as well.
Okay.
And so due to the nature of that, I still had to quarantine and be in isolation, especially when I was in Toronto. And so, yeah, like I guess we were pretty shut down in Toronto for over a year. And then after that, I had gone to BC for a bit, and then I went to Manitoba, and then Manitoba locked down. And so Manitoba was closed. And it's interesting because in the pandemic, just like as you mentioned, Michelle had stated how many of her daughter's modeling jobs weren't as busy. I had photo shoots booked in Toronto, and they got canceled because of obviously the restrictions. And so it was definitely challenging. Getting a chance to do a photo shoot. I was still able to do photo shoots, but it wasn't as easy it would have been outside of a pandemic, for example. I had an opportunity to interview with the news, and unfortunately I couldn't go in person into the studio, but we still did it virtually. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back to, life post-pandemic and having a chance to do more things in person. It really makes you appreciate, just being in the moment in person, right? I mean, as much as virtual is great, that connection when you just have no technology and you just connect with a person, I think that's really something that this pandemic has taught me to appreciate so much more.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned no technology, because I'm a big fan of that. Like, I know we're all like addicted to our phones and stuff, but when I'm with people, I love when people can actually put their technology down and, let's spend time together, because
Sure.
like, if not, then I'm kind of like, not to be mean, but why are we here? Right. Like, we can't connect, and like, let's put our phones down for a minute. I also think, that's I think, I'm not gonna call anyone out, but I was, with people a couple weeks ago, and it was the phones and it was the Apple Watches, and I was just kind of like, guys, come on. We haven't seen each other in a year.
But I really appreciate it, right? Like sometimes, like I think we all get caught in those moments, and I know whenever somebody reminds me, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm so glad you got me in check because I needed that, right? So I'm sure that
Right.
they appreciate when you do that, and it allows them to also enjoy their time in person a little more too.
Yes, it was very nice though. It was nice to just see people
Yeah,
and be
sure.
nice to people and everything like that. It was nice just reconnect with everyone. As far as I know you it's a secret, but are you looking? I know that a lot of people in the pageant world cross over and start doing things in the fashion world. I know you mentioned photo shoots. So are you thinking or looking or contemplating and
Yeah,
doing some
I
fashion
am
things?
I am already signed with like an agency. So I have done a couple of have done a couple movies before, obviously very small roles, but that's something I would totally love to explore is acting. I feel like, through pageantry, it's just given you so much experience in communication and articulation and presenting yourself that I would love to like dabble in there a little bit more. It gets a little bit challenging when you do have a full-time day job, but
Right.
definitely something that I would love to explore. But as I mentioned, I'm not totally done with pageants because I still am a pageant coach, and I coach
Right.
women from all around the world. And even like this week, I've been like coaching until 10 p.m. at night. So it's been very, very busy, and just having that opportunity to help other young women discover their purpose and their why. It's something that's so incredibly special. I can't even quite describe it.
So so what does pageant coaching look like? So are you coaching people who are already involved in pageants, or people who are thinking of getting involved, or both? A mix of both.
Yeah, so like generally either delegates will come when they're debating on a pageant, but most of them have already signed up for pageant to compete, or they're already representing their countries. And so a lot of the work that I do is it's very holistic in terms of I look at every single aspect of competition. I not only listen to their elevator pitch of their initiatives and projects But I also want to get to know more about them as a person, right, outside of pageantry. Who are they? Just so that I can ensure that when they're representing themselves, they're being their most authentic self, and it's not sounding rehearsed, for example. And then the other aspect to it is obviously the walk. I think it's very important to be able to walk properly in a pageant and have proper eye engagement, but also to recognize that there are differences. And I'm sure you know, in terms of the walk from, you know, a regular fashion model versus a pageant model. And sometimes those are little things that you have to correct if somebody has had some experience in walking. And then the other component is, you know, a lot of wardrobe consulting. I've done so much virtual online shopping with girls. Like we just share screens and I'm looking with them and trying to find the right wardrobe for them. So that's been a lot of fun. And then there's other elements too, like accessories, hair and makeup, like every single little detail. And for certain projects, they have, you know, special components that might not be in another project, pageant. For example, maybe a certain pageant may want you to have a specific project or initiative prepared. Whereas, for example, Dr. World wanted a field presentation to describe your field of your doctorate. So every single pageant's different. And so I just tailor my coaching based on that specific pageant because they're all different. And then there's also the component of different divisions, right? Like I've coached girls from anywhere from 6 years old all the way up to like 65. So yeah, it's a very wide range of delegates that compete. And I think it's also a skill to be able to connect with, you know, women and girls from every age, every demographic. And you know, I'm really happy to be able to do that, and definitely lights my heart on fire.
That's really cool. Like it's when you said 65, I was like, oh wow, really? But that's really cool. It made me think of like my parents. I'm not gonna say how old my mom is, but I was talking to her about just things, and one of the things she always says, she's like, well, I'm too old. And I'm just like, like, first of all, I'm like, no, you're not. But secondly, I'm like, I wish I could just kind of show you or like bring you into conversations that I have with people on a regular basis who mention women of, you know, more mature age all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And I'm just like, I promise you, you're not too old. But yeah, so I'm always kind of like pushing her out there, but in her mind, she's too old for everything. I'm like, you're so not. So that's really cool to hear that. So for someone who's like, you know, maybe someone who's never done anything. So no fashion experience, no pageant, but they're like, I might want to give this a shot or take a look at it. Like what would be kind of a step one that you would recommend for them?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I get a lot of women and girls who are in that position. And so I think the first step would be is to get a coach or a mentor, because without that, you know, if it's your first rodeo, it's going to be hard for you to know what to expect. But if you're working with a mentor or a coach, they're going to prepare you so it's not like first rodeo. Everything, all their knowledge, they're going to translate it and transfer it over to you. So you're coming there prepared. I've had so many delegates where it was their first pageant and they're like, I'm so grateful for coaching because I came into this interview knowing what to expect. I came in here and I like, being able to totally change somebody's wardrobe, whereas they initially start off, they show you the words they want to wear and you're like, no, this is not, something that you could wear here. And then, you help them and then they end up starting to develop those skills themselves with being able to pick their own wardrobe. It's really special to see the growth in these women and girls, to see them, give them a little coaching, but then they're able to do it on their own. And I think that's something that's very rewarding, but I think it's something that requires a mentor and a coach to start with, right? And I think that everybody's capable of being independent, but you kind of need a little bit of that initial nesting before you're on your way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm a huge supporter of mentorship. That's a big push that we have within Worthy's mentorship, but also just because I had a mentor when I started my career, and I always say that my time with him is just, irreplaceable. Like you can't, yeah, it's hard to describe the difference that he made. And, I don't know, I'm not saying I wouldn't have made it without him, but having him there definitely gave me a leg up, and also just helped me, like I think you were saying towards the beginning, discover who I was, and not just who I was or who I wanted to be, I should say, maybe in this industry, but, you know, kind of figure out who I was as a person. Because I feel like for things like this, fashion, pageantry, and you know, the pageantry side, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if you don't know who you are first, it's going to be really hard to tap into like these industries, right? Because I feel like in the fashion industry, it's so hard to get lost in so many things,
Yeah.
the latest thing or this or that, and you have to really, really, really be focused and centered on who am I, not just as a person, but who am I and who do I want to be in this industry. So yeah, like he helped me kind of like keep that focus of no, we're not trying to be that person, we're being us. But yeah.
Love.
So is that like kind of the same in pageantry?
I would have to say so for sure. Like, I think that authenticity goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's really great. I love to hear everything that you're doing. It sounds like you have a pretty full plate, despite the fact that you weren't able to do a lot of things in person. It definitely feels like you've been able to keep yourself busy during
For
this
sure.
past year or
Yeah.
so. Well, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great just chatting with you and hearing more about what you're doing and hearing more about Dr. World, actually. And you know, I'm looking forward to see what you do next and what, you know, what the upcoming projects are.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. It was so nice to meet you. And this is a great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Angel, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.